G'day guys, it's Kelvin from the Coaching Company New Zealand. We'll have a look. Hey, there it is, Coaching Company. Yep, right. It's been a bit of a day. We're setting up a Link Razor PDM. This one, we've got some paperwork. It's the quick start guide, and Jason, who normally sits at this bench, has been in wiring it up. And I said to him the other day, hey, how about you give it a bit of setup, see if you can work it out. And turns out it wasn't quite as easy as I expected it to be. Well, he expected it to be. And there are a few little tricks and tips. So we're going to work through some of the basics here today. This one, we've got the Razor. We've got a Link Extreme. We've got two CAN lambdas going on a supercharged 1UZ, because I do supercharged, I do lots of 1UZs. And so that's fairly normal stuff for us. Going into an FJ40 Land Cruiser. It's probably also going to get a CAN gauge, because he wanted to retain some of the factory type gauges, or the dash. And so he showed me a very cool, very cool digital replica sort of style dash, but that's for another day. We're going to set up this PDM. Okay, so connected to the PDM. This is the base file as such. We've got PDM configuration, which is down here, Razor PDM, and you can actually turn stuff on and off right there and there. And I'm just going to call it, I'm going to so we'll save that in there. And what I'm going to do right now, before I really get in and start, I'm going to save the configuration. And so this gives me the ability to come back to a starting point, and I have been playing, so I'm going to call this 06 for my video. Excuse me. Right, we're going. Oh yes, I would like to save that data to the PDM. Thank you. Right, on output 1. So I come down to pin configuration. There's pin configuration, and I'm going to drop some stuff in here. Pin 1, and that's on the high power. So it's pins like 14 and 20 linked together. That's going to be for our fuel pump, and it is actually later on, and it's going to be on the high side. It's going to give the power to the fuel pump, and that's going to be commanded via the CAN system. I'm not going to do CAN in this video, we'll do that another time. Output 2, looking at this is going to be our fan, and actually what I'm going to do, and that's going to be high side. What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to be a little bit naughty here, and I don't like doing it, but I'm going to leave these in lowercase. It'll make sense soon. And don't worry about the function at this point in time. I'm just putting these in so I'm working through the system that works for me. IC pump. So he's got an intercooler pump on this particular vehicle. It's going to be a high side as well. Hey, high side. Right. Moving down, output 4 at this point in time isn't used. We may swap that around and use that for our start. So we're going to do starter control through the PDM as well. So the ADIO, analog digital input output, number 1. I've got to find it here on the little list. Now, so this one is going to be supplying voltage to the alternator on the sense circuit. It's pushing the limits a little bit, going through a PDM to do that, because if that's too high or too low, then the alternator will overcharge. So we're really trusting that PDM in this case to put out the correct voltage. And output logic, and so you've got a choice when you come in here whether it's off, input analog, output logic, or a PWM. Now if it's an input analog, you can use it as a digital by having it as both set to say it has to go over 2.5 volts. So 12 volts is over 2.5 volts. That would turn it on, or under that would turn it off, or vice versa, of course. This setup, we're using it basically as a fuse box. It's a very cool fuse box. A little bit pricey for a fuse box, but it's also trying to modernize the truck moving forward. And we're trying to get the most that we can out of what we're trying to achieve here. So output logic. And then you'll see over here there's actually a function, because I was playing with it just before. Now I want to turn that on when the ignition switch is turned on. Now I'm not sure whether this is a mistake or I can't find it, but I've brought up the GP function number 1, and I'm going to pop in here and select the parameter. So this is the parameter on which it's going to start. It's going to turn on. Normally I would do it as an ignition switch on. There is an ignition switch populated in the header plug on pin, can I get it? Pin 4? Pin 4, yeah, pin 4, ignition switch. Another way to do this was suggested to do it just on a manual switch on. I've got more items to switch on than there are manual options, so that isn't really an option for me. But this might be a suitable workaround. And when you're working with PDMs, I've worked with a few different models. You have to kind of think outside the square, and this thing's got a lot of options in here, and we're only going to scratch the surface today. And in the time I'm allowed to make this video, I've allowed it. It's a personal goal of not making it too long. You know what? P is above whatever letter I was just looking at. Come on. That is not the one I want. So I'm going to PDM, there it is, and I'm going to go PDM battery voltage. It gives me what the voltage is presently at. I'm going to push select, and I'm going to do it is greater than, so you can choose greater than, less than, equal to, or between and outside. Oh, that's inconvenient, isn't it? So right there, I just got to get my phone. Okay, so now I've got that working. Now a little tip too, guys, push enter. Push enter. That's good, that's good, that's good, and I'm pretty happy there. So that now should allow that sense to turn on. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to save that configuration. Now over my afternoon, I have found this to be just a smidgen glitchy every now and then. No, I don't want to do that. 07. I'm going to save that, and it'll ask me, I think, whether I want to save it to the PDM. Come on, you guys, ask me that. Here it is, see? Yes, I would like to save that to the PDM, thank you. Oh, it's a store. Now, I think I've got it over here. I've got a status list. I just set up a data box here, and you'll see now that it is active. Got my test light. I'm just going to disappear for a moment, and I'm going to grab my wiring loom, and I am going to confirm that I have 12 volts where I want 12 volts. Yes, 100%. Let's go. I'm positive that it's working now, and I'm happy. All right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to set up. Oh, what I didn't do here was I didn't add what it actually was. Or I didn't push enter. Okay. So over here, no, I didn't push enter. That was a problem, wasn't it? And again, you have to, guys, you have to push enter. I'm going a bit quicker this time. And you'll see as I'm doing it, over here, it's changing. Over to the side with my little arrows. Right. Okay, we're going to do number 2. So number 2 off my little list is injector 12 volts. And guys, I'm pushing that enter. Output logic. Right. So I did the GP function on number 1, or GP function 1 to turn the alternator sense on. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to do it, I can do it over manual control. So under control setup, we've got manual controls. But you can also do it under a GP logic if you really wanted to. The same sort of way. I only need it to turn on when there's an ignition switch. I can't find an ignition switch. I might just be dumb, but I can't find it in there. And I rang the tech support guy. He's an Australian today. I got the Australian tech support, and he couldn't find it either. So it didn't make me feel so bad. Right, we're going with GP logic. Just going to get rid of this one. We're going to put this over here. Thank you. And I might just lock that up. Right, so we're going to have an output pin, injector 12 volt. So we're going down to injector 12 volt. We're going to tap in here, and we're going to find a parameter, which is again going to be that PDM battery voltage. I wonder if I can just type it in, PDM. PDM. Yeah, there we go. That's a bit faster, isn't it? Battery voltage. That's all my stuff that I wanted, and I select that. Yes, thank you. However, greater than 1 volt. Perfect. That's good. And oh, there it is. That's what I wanted to pop up. It's not going to go off those parameters unless you give it an expression. Okay, so here's some examples. So all I need to do here, there it is there. It's become active. And checking tool. Yep, 12 volts where 12 volts should be. I'm going to try and go back into my can here. Now, again, at this case, I am going to save it. Save configuration. I'm just going to put it straight over the top of number 7. And it'll ask me if I want to save it, store it to the PDM. Yes, I do. Alright, so there I've done 2 different ways of doing the same thing just to get an output to turn on with the ignition turning on. I can power down the PDM. Now, at the moment, I do have the ignition switch, that pin 4, that is powered up. The PDM can be powered up on the bench when it's connected to the laptop, but not all the functions are going to turn on and off, apparently. I haven't actually tested a whole lot of that. I have done some things that I shouldn't have done today and had things turned on when they shouldn't have been turned on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move a little bit quicker now, and I'm going to turn on the other main things I need to turn on. Now, at this point, I'm pretty sure that says CAN. Jason can wire. Awesome mechanic. His writing, he could be a doctor. With that writing, he could definitely be a doctor. Oh, I made it CAN 12 volts. And it's basic output logic. So we're going to, let's put it on a, should we put it on a function? Yeah, let's put it on a function. See, here's the problem. See that non-pushing the enter button again? Now, another thing I'm doing at the same time is there's little lights on that PDM box that's next to me. I am watching them turn on as I work my way through it. Perfect. We'll do it on logic. Should we do it on logic? Let's do it on logic. I keep telling you to push the enter button, and then I don't push the enter button myself. We just, as I said, got to push that expression in there. Greater than 1 volt. Perfect. Comes up there. We're going well. And file, save it. Now watching over here, see we've got 12 volt coil is off, and CAN 12 volts, oh, that's now active. Surely do. And another thing I've learnt is you go slower to go faster. So did I do something wrong? Yeah, I did. See how it didn't turn on? See the core 12 volts? Look at that right there. Enter. And I'm just going to save it straight in. And there we go. It's active. Now what Jason's done here is he's actually joined those two pins together, those two low power pins, to be for the starter motor, and he's fed a start into the ECU. And I don't have the ECU plugged in at the moment. If you power up the injectors without the ECU powered up, things happen. It's not so good. There was lots of clicking, so we're not going to do that anymore. I've left the ECU unplugged. Well, what do we got here on number 7? It was the ECU, but I've changed it. It's now alt ignition. And should we do that on a logic? Yeah, I'm just going to do it on a logic because I think it's a bit faster. Oh no, I do it on a function. Sorry, change my mind. And they don't like multiple functions, multiple things doing multiple things. So what I would have liked actually is to just go ignition switch on for this, for all these outputs. Ignition switch on, ignition switch. That's just not the way it is. And we're going to scroll down. Alt ignition. We're also going to look at later on. There will be some CAN with the ECU. I'm not going to do that in this video, but hopefully I'll get a chance to smack that together as well. PDM battery voltage. Now you can also set it up on other logics. There's lots of other things in there you can choose, and if you've got your PDM, connect it to your laptop on your bench. Sit it at home, have a play while you're eating dinner. No, actually spend time with your kids. When the kids go to bed, play with your PDM. And don't be scared to try some different stuff. Tap some information in. Now, we also need to set up the way each of these pins actually work. So how they actually function as a fuse. And that's going to be very important as well. So, and we do that in a slightly different area. And you see, when I'm doing this, I just work rhythmically through it, using pretty much the same system on every single one. And yep, it's a little bit boring, but it's also very efficient because you don't make mistakes. Okay, and you don't want to make mistakes in this sort of stuff. The reason I save it is I can go back to that point. If I do a big change, then I will give it a new file number. Okay, so bam, 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 bam. We have all that stuff on now. We still don't have a fuel pump and a fan. We don't have the intercooler listed on that one. Like many things, if you want to add stuff in here, you know, there's a plus button or there's a left click or right click and you add properties. So I want to add that intercooler onto that list of conditions, and you'll see the reason I made them all lowercase is here's your uppercase, here's your capitals up there, and then the lowercase at the bottom. So it makes that quite easy to find, and I want a status, and you can just drag it over, pop it over there. I think that should work. There we go. Lovely. Move it over there. There we go. Perfect. I want to get rid of that list. Right, now we probably should set up some of these things to work like a fuse, or what they're actually doing. So we aren't using, on this one I'm not using any of the ADIOs, analog digital input outputs, as an input. We're going to go up here. And let's say it's the injectors. I could probably put this on another screen, right? So now we've got to actually set up the conditions that the PDM will shut down when it sees a fault, which is, that's the reason for having the PDM. So it's got here injector 12 volt, good. There's the function and the logic, and that is presently active. Now this is the mode, so what it'll do, right, my brother came in and I just had to explain to a farmer how that works, and now it's going to rain and I'm in a tin shed. Right, so this is actually the real purpose of the PDM. To actually set how it's going to blow as such, or how that fuse is going to operate in a fault condition. And we're going to go slow. And as I said, I have noticed this a couple of times today. Did I just save those last, let's just save those last adjustments, because I don't want to lose them. Hold there for a moment. Yep, there was a little glitch. Hopefully it's going to connect up like it should. I haven't done a restart on my laptop. But I just did nearly 30 minutes without it having a bit of a fault. We're good to go again. Woo! Okay. No, we're not. It hasn't loaded everything. But I really like PDMs. I'm a big fan. I've worked with the Motec ones quite a lot doing boats, and I really like them. And I'm really pleased that Link has caught up. It's a really neat little unit. And I think once the software gets developed and made better, and a bit of user feedback, the overall product's only going to get better. It is really focused on using the CAN to control things. So that does limit it a little bit for likes of indicators and headlights and wipers and all that. But of course, I can't comment too much about that because I haven't used it for lights and wipers and all that sort of stuff for the rest of the car. 12 outputs, so 4 high power at 25 amps. I'm sure it's 25, and 8 with 8 at 8 amps. Every time you use one for an input, you're going to lose an output as well. and that's a little disappointing, but it's not the worst thing in the world, especially when you're using CAN and for the feature. So like anything, you're using the unit correctly or applying it correctly is very, very important, and that's where we have to make sure that as repairers that we let the customers make an informed choice when we make recommendations with regard to what products to use. It's no different telling, using a monsoon to run a V8, which we use lots of, but we're group firing the ignition and the injectors, or wasted spark, the coils, if we're doing coil unplug. So it's important to let people know and have an informed decision on that. I think we're good. Right. No, we're not. Right. I'm going to call it right now. Showed us some bit of setup, but I didn't get into. Oh, we might be lucky. We'll go through while it's trying to work its stuff out here. So you can have different ways that the protection will work. The trip time is how long it sees that fault condition before it trips out. And there it is. Latch off, it stops. It won't turn back on until you do a reset of the unit or retry. And I prefer the retry. 0.5, so it just gets away from those little fluctuations in voltage that may cause an issue. On the high power, you've got inrush voltages as well, so when you're firing up that higher current device like a motor or an electric motor, it takes care of that. I would have liked to see a lot more counts on here. I think 20 is as high as it goes. Yeah, 20 is as high as you go on your retries. And your delay, what are we doing? Injector 12 volt? Probably about 1 second, isn't it? On less critical items, I might take them longer. They'll cool down or something like that. And there's an overtemp. Now, by adjusting that overtemp, you can prioritize different functions within the PDM. So you can shut them down earlier or later. If you're using it as a pull-up, as an input, there's a different set of thresholds that you can use on and off. And that stuff's real simple. For the high side, we go over here. So the fuel pump, let's get, so we're going to use a couple pins. Fuel pump. So very similar to your low side ones, your low power outputs, but you've got a little bit more here going on where you get an inrush voltage you can change. There's an overcurrent limit, and your retry count is there as well, and your duration of that inrush. Okay, so a little bit different on the setup there. And how you can put some big voltages in here. Let's watch this. 60 amps. Woohoo! So if it does spike for that moment, the unit's going to handle it. So that's really cool. So that sets it up. We've configured some bits and pieces, and I will need to go through and set up all of these retry counts on every single one of these outputs. We have decided on this one to run the coils on an 8 amp. In a 3Z, they would run those coils possibly with a little bit less dwell on a 10 amp fuse, and they don't blow. So I think we're going to get away with an 8 amp. Yeah, I think we are. Remember that enter. Remember that saving it. We're good now. I am working my laptop pretty hard because I got my editing software going on here too, guys. So, but even without that, it was a little bit glitchy. We'll pop it on there. It was all good. So I hope that's been helpful a little bit on setting up these PDMs. There is more to do, like the can. We can do a little bit of can. Now, there's not a whole lot of information on what's on the can string. I am just plugging in the ECU right now. Yep, and my ECU is operational. While we're here, we'll just take a couple of minutes. We'll pop over here. Righto, guys. So here's the link. So we're running an Extreme. With some less software, we've got can set up here. And we've got a can set up down the side here. So there's can set up there too. I'm going to do it the way that most guys will be familiar with. Can 2, user defined, and then you can actually just hit on here in the mode and you can scroll up and down here. And look, there's a can aerospace. I don't know what that can. There's a Razer PDM. And then if I go over here to can devices and I look on can 2, which was where my one is. Okay, so use the one that it's on, your one, find device, and it should scroll through and it should find our PDM. Here it is, look at that. There's our PDM. Yeah, remember to store your settings. And down here we've got the same stuff, but we've also got a PDM here. PDM output, so we can use this to do some setup with our can stuff. Okay, with the PDM. Through the can to our PDM. Voila. That's going to do my fuel pump, that's going to do my fan, and then it's going to need to do my intercooler on off as well. Intercooler pump. So those are the 3 pieces that are going over the can on this one. As I said, it's a really basic setup, but hey, modernizing an old truck with some cool gear. It's been a big night. I've had enough of being here. My PDM is working mostly. I've still got to go through and set all those voltages for the ins and outs, but I think that can wait till tomorrow. I hope that's been really helpful. We'll talk again soon. Catch you later. I'm waiting. It's gonna have to prompt. Oh, there it goes. I'm just showing you here, guys. See, I've got some voltage. I'm on the can wiring. There's my ignition switch. Turns off. Put it back in. And it turns back on. Plugging the PDM in to the laptop. Now I was told can you see it? 12 volts. Unplugging the ignition. That stays on. So just be really careful when you're working with your laptop. You disconnect the ignition. Some strange stuff can sometimes happen. Right, just before I go home, look at this. So here's my lights, LEDs. I haven't turned the high powers on, but we got the low. There's my coils. Boom. Not happening. It's not happy. I'll just do a reset. Just to connect to the ignition. And then put you down here like this. Can we see it? Yeah, we can. And I turn it back on. So that will reset it. It's powering up, and look, straight away it's bringing up a fault. I'm unplugging the coils as fast as I can, but it's going to beat me. Did it fault out? Oh, I got them turned off in time. Okay, so I've unplugged those coils. That's one coil plugged in. Two coils plugged in. Three coils plugged in. Four coils plugged in. There's a fault that's going to be on this side. It's too late to be solving these problems. We're good so far. I'm at 6 coils. That one, don't like that one. Take the fault away. Seven coils. Look at that. Right, we're going to plug this last coil in. 12 volts in the right place. Trigger. Earth is probably okay. But as soon as it touches on, look, it starts flashing. There's a fault with that coil. Let's try another coil, eh? Oh, look at that. And that is awesome. That coil's stuffed. Possibly it's been dropped actually. Oh, there's a crack in it. There we go. That is why we run a PDM. It was that easy. You see the lights flashing. That is some cool stuff, okay? It was that easy to diagnose a faulty coil. This one can go in the bin. Actually, I'll show Jason tomorrow. But that's awesome, awesome stuff.